interference. Only after the Liberals got caught turning a blind eye to Beijing's interference in our democracy did they finally introduce legislation to establish a registry. It's been a year since the legislation passed, and where is the registry? No office established, no commissioner appointed, and no timeline provided. After years of opposing and obstructing a registry, the Liberals' latest tactic appears to be one of endless delay. This is completely inexcusable. It's time for the Liberals to finally take foreign interference seriously and get this registry up and running now.
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to thank Premier Houston, Premier Holt, and our federal government for their leadership in securing critical flood protection for the Isthmus of Chignecto. This isn't just about protecting land.
For innovating and contributing. Congratulations and thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, just have a quick, I know y'all are so excited to see this wonderful question period that starts it's a little early today. To Mark Garneau, a man who became an Air Force aviator that did deeds and flown over Lord knows where. Could have retired just there. However, happily for Canada, he didn't end there. Off to space, because someone had to be the first Canadian up there. No time to relax was in this man's care. Politics, where he was feisty and had some gripes in that office there. That is where I found his worth to be odd as honest as pure snow on December 21st. A recalibration, and then couldn't help but cheer his speech at the United Nations. He said it as he saw fit. Wrinkled a few feathers, would be calling it well below the mark. For a leader is a worker just trying to do their part. Mark Garneau, the first Liberal that made the moon, a place near and dear all Canadians' hearth. Okay, there's enough for me. You can check that little silly, the best I can do. I'm sorry, I lay it at your feet. Poem to Mark Garneau.
Members, déclaration de député, l'honorable député.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Thank you, Madam Speaker. On May 30th, at the Stellar Gala in Blainville, it's a very major event. Mr. Serge Dion was awarded the Jean Macquaver Prize. He led Jardin Dion. He built a thriving industry which now employs over 150 people. He even helped the third generation of that business with vision and generosity. He is a committed man. His impact goes well beyond the business community. He was the president of the CCITB. He has also participated in many local causes, including the Maison des Jeunes, Société Alzheimer des Laurentides, and the foundation of the Saint-Eustache Maurice Dion Hospital. Your journey is inspiring. Thank you for everything you do for our region. Thank you for innovating and contributing. Congratulations and thank you.
Madam Speaker, under these Liberals, Canada has become a playground for foreign interference. For years, CSIS, national security experts, and diaspora groups have been calling on the Liberals to establish a foreign influence registry to counter foreign interference. Only after the Liberals got caught turning a blind eye to Beijing's interference in our democracy did they finally introduce legislation to establish a registry. It's been a year since the legislation passed, and where is the registry? No office established, no commissioner appointed, and no timeline provided. After years of opposing and obstructing a registry, the Liberals' latest tactic appears to be one of endless delay. This is completely inexcusable. It's time for the Liberals to finally take foreign interference seriously and get this registry up and running now.
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to thank Premier Houston, Premier Holt, and our federal government for their leadership in securing critical flood protection for the Isthmus of Chignecto. This isn't just about protecting land. It's about protecting livelihoods, supply chains, and economic backbone of Atlantic Canada. As this government doubles down on our belief in Canadian businesses and pursues one Canadian economy, we cannot stop here. The Maritimes hold an untapped potential that demands our unwavering commitment. Every dollar we invest in strengthening this vital corridor is a dollar invested in maritime workers, maritime families, and maritime futures. The question isn't whether we can afford to invest more, it's whether we can afford not to. Let's work together across the political aisle to unlock the full economic power of the Maritimes.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency, Charlevoix. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Last week, the Charlevoix region had a citizens' assembly on health. That was a first in Quebec and in Canada. It shows us that today, more than ever, health is important to everyone. At the symposium, there were professionals, elected officials, constituents as well. Everyone discussed the theme and topic of health. There was Dr. Jean-Luc Duffier, whose team is working on identifying priorities everywhere along the spectrum from prevention to cure. We talked about preventative health care, physical health, mental health, nutrition health, and environmental health. I thank the organizers and everyone who participated. I want everyone who was there to know that in Ottawa, you have in me a strong ally. And congratulations to my region for hosting that symposium. The Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier.
Présidente, alors que je prends la parole pour ma première déclaration de député.
As I rise to speak for the first time in this House, for my first member's statement, I would like to thank the constituents of Honoré-Mercier for placing their trust in me. I'm here thanks to you and thanks to a wonderful team of volunteers, friends, and colleagues who believed in the vision of a stronger, fairer, and more united Canada.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my wife and my 2 young daughters for joining me in this journey. Serving as a member of Parliament is an absolute privilege, but it comes with sacrifices, especially for those closest to us. On that note, I also wish to reach out to all members in the House and thank them for their service. I'd like to thank their families for also supporting them. I invite you all to applaud if you feel thankful for your families playing a vital role in our democratic process.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Madam Speaker, today I want to thank the people of Dufferin-Caledon who elected me for the 3rd time in a row since 2019.
Hear, hear.
I want to say that this is a task that is accomplished by many people, mostly the volunteers and the people that have worked so hard on my campaign manager, my E-Day chair, the Sultan of Signs, and my sign crew that got up the most signs I've ever seen, all of my canvassers knocking on doors every single day, the people that worked on Election Day. As a result of all their hard work, I received 42,500 votes, which is the most votes a Conservative has ever received in the history of the riding of Dufferin-Caledon. And of course, I want to thank my wife, who is my rock and who is always there for me to do what I love. And I want to say to the people of Dufferin-Caledon, every single day, I will work tirelessly to represent your interests here in Parliament and make sure I hold this government to account for you.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Madam Speaker, it is with profound honour and humility that I stand before you today to thank the constituents of Terrebonne for placing their trust in me. I thank them for allowing me to represent them in the House of Commons. Throughout this memorable election campaign, I had the privilege of meeting hundreds of people in shopping centres, seniors' residences, places of worship, and while going door to door. These heartfelt encounters and exchanges allowed me to hear my constituents' concerns, aspirations, and desire for change. Today, we are here. I would like to thank my parents, whose unconditional support has carried me through this journey. I would also like to thank my team of volunteers for their remarkable work, as well as everyone who believed in me from the beginning up till now. I'm committed to listening to my constituents rigorously defending their interests and working tirelessly with other levels of government to improve their lives.
Calgary Nose Hill.
Today we found out that unemployment has climbed to 7%. Canada's youth face a 14.2% unemployment rate, and Canadian students returning to school this fall a whopping 20.1% rate.
Wow.
But the future outlook is even more grim. TD Bank expects 100,000 job losses this fall, and the Bank of Canada just stated businesses are planning to significantly reduce hiring. Yet the Liberals issued over 500,000 foreign student visas and 101,000 temporary work. Rather, it's the Liberals' fault for breaking the immigration system while pushing inflationary spending and job-killing policies. The path forward is abundantly obvious. Conservatives demand that the Liberals immediately...
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Madam Speaker, I would like to draw this House's attention to the 90th anniversary of La Voix de l'Est, which is a newspaper founded in Granby in 1935 by a group of committed French-speaking men. Horace Boivin and Joseph Herman Leclerc were politicians, and Aimé Lorient was an industrialist and journalist. From its very beginnings, La Voix de l'Est became a powerful outlet for progressive ideas that helped shape the development of Granby and the region. This newspaper has never been just another publication. For many families, it has been a source of affirmation and cohesion. It remains an essential outlet for our local identity. La Voix de l'Est has evolved over the decades by developing new projects, and recently it was reborn as a cooperative thanks to the determination of its employees. Today, the mission continues digitally with the same level of commitment to quality information. In a context where regional media are fragile, preserving this voice is crucial to maintaining a strong, informed democracy rooted in its communities.
Trying to get this right, the Honourable Member for Tayaya Kun Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 36 years ago this week, the world watched in horror as peaceful democracy activists in Tiananmen Square were met with tanks and gunfire. Less known but deeply remembered by many of my constituents is that Tibetans have for decades been met with brutal repression as they assert their basic rights to freedom and dignity. Today, that includes a more recent horror: colonial-style boarding schools run by the Chinese government that house approximately 1 million Tibetan children. A new report by the Tibetan Action Institute shares how these schools now separate children as young as 4 years old from their parents, stripping Tibetan children of their religion and mother tongue, threatening to destroy Tibetan culture in China. In recent weeks, I've met with the Sikyong, or leader of the Tibetan government in exile, and several other Tibetan human rights groups, guided by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Their unwavering commitment to self-determination for Tibet, to justice, and to cultural survival in a non-violent way is deeply inspiring. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to represent the resilient Tibetan community of Tayaya Parkdale High Park, together with the community represented by my colleague, the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore, the largest population of Tibetans and Tibetan Canadians in North America. To them, we say, see you, we hear you, we stand by you.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Speaker, as a young mother in the early 80s, I experienced the challenges so many mothers are facing today. Under the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Liberal government, our resources were hijacked and our economy was ravaged. Interest rates rose to 22%. When we talk about inflation being the highest in 40 years under this current Liberal government, it takes me back 40 years to when we, as small business owners with a young family, experienced the devastation in real time. Now, my children and grandchildren are facing the same challenges with higher food costs that alone are overwhelming. This Liberal Prime Minister is more of the same, causing even more chaos. 10 years and counting of Liberal inflationary deficits have record numbers of Canadians needing food banks, single mothers watering down milk, and Canadians eating less nutritious meals. And when this Prime Minister, I'm a banker and I know how to grow the economy without spending money, what is he doing to solve his inflationary crisis? Bringing in $500 billion in new spending.
Honourable Member for Sydney Glace Bay.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize a vibrant celebration in the heart of my riding, the annual Club Day hosted by the Boys and Girls Club in Whitney Pier. This year's celebration holds a special significance as the Boys and Girls Club of Canada marks its 125th anniversary. Madam Speaker, that's a remarkable milestone in its legacy of supporting children and youth across this country. For generations, the Boys and Girls Club has been a cornerstone of our community, providing safe, supportive spaces where young people can learn, grow, and thrive. Each year, Club Day brings together families, volunteers, and youth to celebrate the inclusion, leadership, and community that defines the great community of Whitney Pier. This event is more than just a day of fun and activities. It's a powerful reminder of the incredible work being done every day to empower our next generation. So to the staff, Chester Borden, the volunteers, the community of Whitney Pier, your dedication is creating a better Cape Breton, a better Whitney Pier, and I say happy, happy, happy day for you.
The honourable member for St. John's and Croix.
Madam Speaker, for 10 years, the Liberals have relentlessly targeted law-abiding firearm owners, hunters and sport shooters, while letting gun smugglers and criminals off the hook. Now the Prime Minister has pledged to reinvigorate Justin Trudeau's gun grab program. The government's main estimates show the Liberals will spend 4 times more targeting legal gun owners than fighting gun crime in our cities. This is not about public safety. It is political theatre designed to appease ideologues who have never held a firearm and do not understand responsible firearm ownership. This includes the Public Safety Minister. As a Member of Parliament for St. John, St. Croix, I will vote against these measures, work to protect communities, and stand with law-abiding firearm owners across the country. Common sense, not ideology, must guide our public safety laws. It is time to bring jail, not bail, for criminals and stop the crime.
Yeah, member for Kingston and the Isles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize an extraordinary act of courage and selflessness by Mr. Lee Spafford, a UPS driver in my riding of Kingston and the Islands, whose bravery turned into an ordinary workday into a moment of heroism. While on his delivery route, Mr. Spafford spotted smoke which appeared to be rising behind a house. Without hesitation, he investigated the situation and indeed found the house to be on fire. With no regard for his own safety, he rushed into the burning home and rescued an elderly woman alone and trapped inside. His swift and fearless actions saved a life and exemplify the very best of our community spirit. In a world where headlines often focus on division, Mr. Spafford reminded us that heroes quite often are among us, those who act not for recognition, but for doing what is right. Thank you, Mr. Spafford.
The honourable member for Stormont-Dundas-Glengarry.
Madam Speaker, the latest job numbers are out and they are bad. Unemployment is up to 7%, an increase of 14% from just 1 year ago, and the highest it's been in a decade outside of COVID. There's been virtually no growth in employment in 2025. 1 in every 5 students are unemployed and looking for work. Stats Canada confirmed themselves just how bad things have gotten in our economy. Quote, people are facing greater difficulties in the current labour market. This is the result of 10 years of the same Liberal inflationary and job-killing policies, and this Prime Minister wants to double down on the same failed approach that got us into this mess in the first place. He promised to cap spending at 2%, but the first spending bill that he tabled increased it by a whopping 8%. That's $500 billion more of inflationary spending with no budget. So on behalf of the 1.6 million Canadians who are unemployed, when will the Liberals get serious, table a spring budget so Canadians can get back to work?
Well done. The honourable member for Prescott Russell Cumberland.
Madame la Présidente, je suis profonde.
Madam Speaker, I am deeply worried about President Trump's newest threats to impose additional tariffs on our Canadian steel and aluminum industries. The aluminum and steel industries in Canada and the United States are closely integrated. When we work together, we prosper. In April, I had the privilege of visiting Iveco Rolling Mills in L'Orignal, where I heard firsthand from workers and management about the challenges facing our steel industry in Prescott Russell Cumberland.
This week, I met again with Iveco's president, Stéphane Hardy, to address growing concerns over President Trump's latest threats of a 50% tariff on Canadian steel. I, along with this government, am standing firmly with Iveco and with all steel and aluminum workers in Prescott Russell Cumberland and across Canada. Our government is fighting for the steel and aluminum industries, fighting to ensure fair trade, protect good jobs, and defend these vital industries from unjust foreign pressure.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The job numbers are out, and they're bad. Failing Liberal policies have now caused a full-blown unemployment crisis. 7% unemployment overall. Ontario alone has shed 25,000 manufacturing jobs, and 1 in 5 students can't find a job this summer. So when will this government reverse their job-killing policies so that Canadians can get back to work?
Here.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, we have seen the job numbers, and I would say it's in large part to the trade war that we're facing with our neighbor to the south. But Madam Speaker, Canadians, and I think I hear the Conservative will rejoice that later on today we will be tabling legislation, including a plan to build Canada strong, Madam Speaker. That's the type of thing. On this side of the House, they just ask question. On this side of the House, we put plan forward to build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Saskatchewan.
Madam Speaker, the fact is unemployment has been steadily increasing under this government for 2 years. This week I spoke to Josh, a hardworking and experienced laborer in his late 30s. Josh has been unemployed for more than a year and has now put in over 1,000 applications. StatCan's numbers show that unemployed Canadians like Josh are searching longer and becoming more desperate. Now, by raising taxes, obstructing development, and letting immigration get out of control, Liberals are depriving people like Josh of the opportunities that they deserve. Will they change course so that Josh and others can get back to work?
Here.
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I think about Josh, his families, his community, and all the communities around the country which are affected by this trade war. That's why, Madam Speaker, we are going to table legislation later on today with a plan, because the way to address what's going on in Josh and his employment status is to build a plan, to create opportunities, to build Canada strong, to build a confident Canada, a prosperous Canada. And I would want to salute the work of my colleague, the Minister of Transport and the Minister of One Canadian Economy. They have done great work, Madam Speaker, to build that One Canadian economy that will create...
Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Saskatchewan.
Madam Speaker, if they had a plan, the typical way you'd put a plan before the House of Commons to address unemployment is in something called the budget. And yet we have no budget. Their response to terrible unemployment numbers is to blame others, blame external events, and to fail to present the House of Commons with a budget. They said a plan beats no plan. They have no plan. They have no budget. They have no plan to address out-of-control unemployment. They need to cut taxes, allow development, and control immigration. When will they change course so that people can get back to work?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, indeed, this government has a plan. This plan will be tabled later today in the form of legislation that member and his colleagues will have a chance to support. A plan to build this country, a plan to collaborate with every premier in this country who has endorsed this plan, a plan to build major projects, a plan to get our economy on track, a plan to create opportunity for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Will that member stand up and support our plan?
The Honourable Member for Moose Jaw, Lake Centre, Lanigan.
Madam Speaker, today we learned that Canada's unemployment rate has risen to 7%, the highest in a decade outside the pandemic. For students, this number is even higher at over 21%. Canada's youth are eager to start their career paths, but are facing obstacles at every step. They want to have independence and not be a burden to their parents. For 10 years, the Liberals have been at the helm of our economy, and things have only gone downhill. The Liberals have created this unemployment crisis. Do they have a real plan to fix it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Yeah, that's what I said. Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, we stand with the families that are impacted by unjust, unfair, and illegal tariffs to the south of us. We stand with those businesses. But, Madam Speaker, we're a government of action. We've just advanced legislation to cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're lowering the carbon tax, and we're lowering the taxes on first home buyers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix. Madam Speaker, the unemployment rate among young people in Quebec is 3 times higher than the general population. It's 17% instead of 5%, and summer job offers have dropped dramatically. Our young people just want to start working and saving a bit of money. When will the government finally table a budget so that our young people can budget their futures? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, my colleague will have the opportunity later today to vote in favor of legislation that contains a plan to build a strong Canada, to build national projects so that Canada has the strongest economy in the G7, to make sure that people, and young people included, can prosper and have a future. The way to build a strong Canada is to have a plan and to take action. And that's precisely what we're going to do here on this side of the House. And Canadians will watch what the Conservatives are doing. Will they support us in building a strong Canada? The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, once again, just words and no budget. Our young people want to take part in the workforce. They want to help build the future, but their unemployment rate is 3 times higher than that of the general population. Stats Can shows that there are 1.6 million unemployed people, and that's a 13.8% increase over last year. When will the government turn things around and stop turning their backs on our young people who just want to build a future for themselves? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, what young people want to see is what the Conservatives are going to do today, because instead of just talking, they'll have an opportunity to do something to support young people all across Canada by supporting our legislation with an ambitious plan for Canada. The Prime Minister came up with an ambitious plan. He met with all the premiers. And Canada is more united than ever before. We're making efforts for our young people to build a strong economy for our communities and for our industries. Madam Speaker, will the Conservatives support our plan? The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kamoashishak-Nitchison. Thank you, Madam Speaker. For 3 months now, aluminum and steel have been grappling with tariffs without any help from Ottawa. This week, the tariffs doubled, and that industry is at the heart of the economy in my riding. There has to be cash flow freed up for our industry to help them. There has to be wage subsidies. After 3 months of tariff wars, what does Ottawa have to offer? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are not abandoning those industries. We, for example, met with the steel industry leaders yesterday. We talked about the importance of cash flow for industries like aluminum in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. The finance minister has offered support. We have made adjustments to EI even before the election to ensure that workers get enough support. We will continue to work with the industry and with workers, and we are standing up to the U.S. The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawawashamak-Netasanen. Let's not forget EI, Madam Speaker, and what the Liberals did with forestry and softwood lumber. We're in a trade war with the Americans, and it's not just since Trump was elected, but since his first term in 2017. Our forestry industry has been dealing with American tariffs for years now. How many layoffs will it take before Ottawa does something? The Honourable Minister. Thank you for the question, Madam Speaker. The softwood lumber industry is very important to Canada and very important to the regions of Canada. And that's one of the reasons why I would be very happy to see the support of all members in this place for our legislation around our plan to build a strong Canada. We want to build Canada. We need softwood to build our future as a country. And that's why everyone here should support our legislation. The Honourable Member for Beauharnois, Salaberry-Soulanges, Huntingdon. Madam Speaker, while the attack by Donald Trump on our economy is getting worse, we need guaranteed access to cash flow. We need a wage subsidy to help workers so that employers can retain their workforce. All we're asking for is something a little bit sooner rather than just promises. We need proactive action, not reactive. What are they waiting for? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Like the Conservative caucus, the Bloc will have a golden opportunity very soon to support the Government of Quebec and all provincial and territorial governments all across the country, business people and unions too, and above all, people who are concerned about opportunities. When you're building a country and when you're standing up to Donald Trump and the U.S., we're going to do that by building major national projects all across this country. So the Bloc will have the opportunity later this afternoon to concretely support our plan.
Last year, 15,000 islanders relied on loaves and fishes, the food bank in my community, while there were 225,000 visits to food banks across BC. 1/3 of those were children. The Prime Minister promised affordable groceries. Instead, infant formula is up 9% and beef up a whopping 33% since January. Liberals keep spending, Canadians keep hurting. Will the Liberals finally table a budget that fights inflation so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, this member who I welcome to the House was obviously not here, but perhaps she should talk to her colleagues who systematically opposed every affordability measure proposed by this government. That is childcare, that is the Canada Child Benefit, that is school nutrition programs, that is dental care, that is pharmacare. That party, the party she ran under, has systematically resisted and voted against every single affordability measure that would help the very people she claims to represent.
Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Madam Speaker, the Minister engages in finger-pointing while 1/3 of the people who are using food banks are children. How are parents supposed to provide healthy lunches for their kids when the cost of apples is up 19%, cheese is up 5%, oranges are up 26%? Not since 2015, but since January. 2 days of groceries cost more than $100 in my community, Madam Speaker. This Liberal government is spending $500 billion without telling Canadian parents where the revenue is coming from. Will the Prime Minister respect the will of this House and table a budget this spring?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the member asks about budgets. She should ask her colleagues in her own caucus about past budgets that have helped the very people of which she speaks, the people who are looking for school nutrition programs, who benefit monthly from the indexed Canada Child Benefit, who take their kids and drop them off at federally subsidized childcare. Madam Speaker.
Can we allow the Minister to answer a question that nobody, that absolutely nobody heckled while it was being asked? The Honourable Minister has 10 seconds.
Madam Speaker, that member should ask her colleagues and maybe plea with them. Next time we bring in a measure to help Canadians get ahead, maybe they should support it.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if the Prime Minister does his own grocery shopping yet or not, so maybe that's why he still thinks food prices are just fine. Yeah, I do. Let me walk him through this. Me and my wife, 2 carts, like many dollars at Costco. Beef strip loin up 34%, white rice 14%, coffee up 9%, sweet potatoes are now a luxury. I haven't even talked about strawberries. What's his response to $500 billion in new spending with no budget, no plan? Will this government finally present a budget that feeds families instead of feeding inflation? Or is this just the price of Liberal leadership?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have watched the party opposite vote against every one of our initiatives that have helped families across this country from coast to coast to coast, whether it be the Canada Child Benefit, the dental program, the daycare care program, housing initiatives. The party opposite has not done one thing to support families across this country, so shame on them, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
I'd like to thank the member from Edmonton West. That's supposed to be a joke. The Prime Minister doesn't buy his own groceries, so of course he doesn't notice when beef jumps 34%, infant formula climbs 9%. But I do, and so do families in Bow River who are skipping meals so their kids can eat. We don't need lectures, they don't need spin, they need relief. The policies of this past Liberal government haven't been working. This current Liberal government aren't going to work. Will the Liberals finally bring forward a budget that cuts inflation, cuts more taxes, so all Canadians can afford dinner again, or is this just the price of bad Liberal policy?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, let's look at some facts. In 2022, inflation was 8.1%. We've driven that down, per our policies, down to 1.7%. The party opposite holds themselves up as these strong economic stewards. They are not. Under their previous governments, our economy failed. We are going to aggressively rebuild our economy back by investing in Canadians. It's time for all Canadians to come together. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Speaker, I was amazed yesterday when the answer to the school food program rose from 400,000 to 500,000 between two 30-second questions. The Prime Minister said he wanted it to be judged by the experience of Canadians at the grocery store. So let's evaluate him. Apples up 18% since January, oranges 26%, coffee 9%, and beef a staggering 33%. Canadians are being crushed, and the Liberal response has been an additional $500 billion in new inflationary spending. When will they table their budget that reduces inflation and cuts taxes so Canadians can afford to feed their families?
Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let's look at facts. The party opposite voted against the school food program. So they wouldn't support children who needed food in schools. They don't support families. They wouldn't support young mothers. They don't support Canadians that need dental work. They don't support very much that supports Canadians. It's time for all Canadians to come together. Madam Speaker, I wish the party opposite would do the same. Vote on our initiatives. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. On Monday, the House called for a budget to be tabled this spring, but the Liberals are asking us to approve more than $500 billion in spending without giving us any numbers. Meanwhile, unemployment is up, mortgage payments are late, and even some full-time workers are having to go to food banks. Canadians have to budget before they spend, but apparently not this government. Can they finally tell us when they're going to table a budget, Madam Speaker? The Honourable Government House Leader. The good news, Madam Speaker, is that this member will have an opportunity to support not just one, but two parts of our plan to create opportunities and jobs for all Canadians. And that happens today. We will debate the Affordability Act, which will help 22 million Canadians with a tax cut, and later we will table a bill supported by stakeholders in Quebec and the Quebec government to create opportunities and build major projects all across Canada. Will the members support that? The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. The Liberals broke their word, increasing spending by 8% after promising to keep it to 2%. As a result, food inflation is out of control. Since January, beef is up 34%, apples 18%, rice 14%, and baby formula up 9%. Food banks can't keep up. Canadian families are hungry. When are the Liberals finally going to table a budget to bring down inflation and taxes? We only have a few days left. The Honourable Finance Minister. Madam Speaker, my colleague will have an opportunity to show her constituents later today once again that she does want to support affordability. Not only did we have second reading of a bill that would cut taxes that 22 million Canadians will benefit from, even in her riding, there will also be an opportunity to show all our political guts by supporting our effort to build Canada strong. People watching TV will be watching to see whether they do the right thing to support us in building a strong Canada. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher. Madam Speaker, $800 million. That's not the next Lotto Canada. That's the amount that the federal government has wasted on fighting our secularism bill in Quebec. The Liberals have already spent $1 million in our tax money to challenge secularism in Quebec. How much are Quebecers going to have to pay so that the federal government can fight their legislation with their own money? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, that's an important question, and in my view, it's important for the federal government to take part in that case, in that litigation. The question of cost is one thing, but it's important to consider the rights of workers. It's very important to protect charter rights and to respect provincial jurisdiction at the same time. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. But I'm not sure the minister really understands his role when he's attacking Quebec legislation that comes under Quebec jurisdiction. The federal government is proving by interfering in this litigation that they do not support Quebec's desire for secularism at all. They're running counter to Quebec's legislation and the National Assembly. What Quebecers want is not necessarily what Quebecers want. Why are they using Quebecers' tax money to fight this legislation? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our government for a long time has expressed doubts about the secularism bill, not only because of what we consider abusive use of the notwithstanding clause. So we are intervening. This is a case that goes beyond Quebec's borders. And as my Bloc colleague knows full well, there are plenty of Quebecers who are very concerned about that legislation too.
Last job-killing anti-development decade, Liberals now claim they want Canada to be an energy superpower, but will only approve pipelines if there's consensus. Yet there's no consensus even in their own cabinet. Most of these ministers stopped pipelines for years. The PM's top gun said, quote, "It is essential not to increase oil production." And the PM himself says, quote, "Half of oil reserves need to stay in the ground." The PM copied Conservatives on energy after he helped block Canada's for half a decade. Isn't it true they really won't ensure private sector pipelines in all directions could get built in Canada fast at all?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. Later today, we will be tabling new legislation to help build Canada strong, to build the projects of national interest, to make us the strongest economy in the G7. I really hope the members will support our bill.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Rhetoric and their photo ops don't matter. Actions do. And the truth is, no private sector pipelines will get built to coasts with shipping and drilling bans. Companies won't build pipelines while this government is the only one in the world to cap Canadian oil and gas and carbon taxes Canadian industries while the U.S. and others don't. They won't kill the anti-development Bill C-69 that premiers, Indigenous leaders, the private sector, and the Supreme Court oppose. Plus, they say there has to be consensus, but they alone will define what's in the national interest. Why won't they just repeal all their anti-energy laws so Canadian workers can at least...
The Honourable Government House Leader.
You know, Madam Speaker, sometimes she talks about concrete actions. Well, that member, for one rare occasion, gets to not just simply criticize, but gets to stand up Stand up for workers. Stand up for the government of Alberta. Stand up for all of the premiers and all of the territories in this country. Stand up for workers, unions, for businesses, for people who want to build this country, who want to create opportunity in this country to do major projects and build a Canada strong. Will that member stand up and do something for once?
The honourable member for Terranova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, during this last Liberal decade, North Atlantic refining stripped their investment in our local refinery, causing major instability in our area. On Wednesday, my honourable Liberal colleague from Newfoundland announced with pride that they are now investing once again, but not here, but in France. This does not seem like something a proud Newfoundlander would announce. My question is, did this Liberal leadership force my fellow Newfoundlander to spin this shameful news?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's really important for the member opposite, and I welcome him to the House, but I think it's really important to remember that there is a bill that will be tabled later today that's about growing this country. And I am so proud of the work that this new government is doing to ensure that Canada meets this moment. That includes Canada becoming a world superpower. And I truly hope that the member opposite is going to be there to vote for all Newfoundland and Labradorians and all Canadians.
I just want to say quickly, she did a really good thing there. The pause for effect, it was really good. It got my attention.
In fact, they'll cap it. This refinery used to produce 100% of our island's diesel, propane, jet fuel, and gasoline. Then, this Liberal government wasted $89 million to a conversion for only biodiesel. And now we have to ship in all these other fuels, and everyone is paying the price. Mr. Speaker, does this government realize that their political headline is now costing Newfoundlanders an extra 5 cents a litre to import fuels that used to be made on our rock?
Madam Speaker, on Monday we met with the premiers, including the Premier of Newfoundland, to talk about how we will build Canada strong. We had consensus with all of the different premiers. We are tabling, just 5 days later, we are tabling legislation to start building again. We really hope the members will support this new legislation.
The honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, after the Liberals' Bill C-69 cancelled a dozen pipeline projects in Canada, Germany, Japan, Greece, Poland, Latvia, Ukraine, South Korea, the Philippines, and Taiwan have all pleaded with Canada for our LNG. Now, in the middle of a jobs crisis, the promise of an energy superpower, and the world wanting our energy, we could use Canadian steel and Canadian labor to build Canadian pipelines to get Canadian energy to the world. So how many new pipelines? How many new pipelines can we expect operational in the next 2 years?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, that member, just like all of his colleagues, are going to have a golden opportunity. Presented later today, there will be a bill with a plan to build this country with the men and the women and the wood and the steel and the aluminum, with companies, with unions, with workers.
Okay, Stephen McKinnon has sold this bill that's coming later today very well. To be honest, very, very well. I'm like, I want to know what this bill is. He keeps saying later it's going to be steel, it's going to be it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Will it be that great? Probably not. Will it be good? It sounds like the Liberals think that it's going to help quiet the opposition. And Stephen McKinnon, he didn't write the bill, is doing. He's the parliamentary secretary or whatever, the House government, the leader of the government of the House of Commons. So he deals with what happens in Parliament, question period, amongst the real work. And I just say. I don't like. He's doing a really good job of selling it. this question period. But we're going to find out. I'm going to have to look at it, and we're going to maybe put it live later about what it is, because it sounds like it's going to be big.
And women from right across this country to build the economy of tomorrow. That member will have a golden opportunity to support this government's plan. Will he do it?
The honourable member for Hull-Elmer.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, Canadian businesses and workers are coming together to build a clean and competitive economy. But currently, our biggest trade partner is threatening new tariffs. So it is essential that we diversify our trade with other countries.
And climate change tell us how Canada's industrial carbon pricing system supports clean growth and helps protect Canada's economic sovereignty. Good question.
The Honourable Minister.
Sovereignty tax.
Je remercie le... I'd like to thank the member for Hull-Elmer for his question. The industrial carbon tax is important in order to build a strong Canadian economy.
Canada is seeking to diversify our trade, and in that we are looking at countries around the world adopting border carbon adjustments. Making sure that we have a strong industrial carbon price is a part of the solution to making sure we have access to those markets. Beyond that, it protects our planet, it protects Canadian jobs, unlike the Conservatives who don't care about this and are actually seeking to avoid it.
The Honourable Member for Langley Township, Fraser Heights.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Canadian dream is to own a home, but that dream has been shattered for so many young families. And those who own a home are now facing higher mortgage payments due to higher interest rates caused by 10 years of Liberal government mismanagement of the economy. According to a recent CMHC report, 63% of Canadian homeowners are worried about defaulting on their mortgages, and 17% have actually missed mortgage payments. So my question to the Minister of Housing, will he acknowledge that this Liberal government has totally mismanaged the housing file?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This new government is focused on rolling out the most ambitious affordable housing plan that Canada has ever seen. And we expect the members opposite to support this. They've raised many questions on this issue. Clearly, they are keen to support our initiatives to scale up affordable housing across Canada with the Build Canada Homes initiative. We look forward to that support. It's time to build.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, the housing crisis is getting worse throughout the country. Rents have skyrocketed over the last 10 years of this Liberal government. Federal programs for housing are too slow, too expensive, too complicated, and too inflationary. This government's measures are just not enough. Young people in Beauce deserve to be able to buy their own home. I have a simple question. When will this government bring forward a budget? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to start by congratulating my colleague on his election. But I would say that over the last 10 years, his party voted against all of our affordability measures, such as dental care, child care, the child benefit, and other things. Right now, they're off on the right foot by helping us with a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, and also by helping us eliminate GST on new home builds for new home buyers, which will help people access the dream of buying a home. And I hope that they will keep supporting us and help us keep supporting programs that will help us constituents.
King Vaughan.
Madam Speaker, according to the Liberals' own housing agency, 60% of Canadians are struggling to pay down debt, and 1 in 4 are using one credit card just to pay off another. The cost of living up 45%, job losses up 34%, and interest rates climbing 29%. The dream of home ownership is slipping further out of reach. Canadians are stuck living in their parents' basement. So I ask, what is this Liberal government's plan to restore the hope Canadians once had? When will they table a budget so people can plan for the future?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I've said numerous times at this House, there is a real focus on this side of the House in ensuring that young Canadians have an opportunity for home ownership. That's why we brought in the GST break for first-time home buyers, $50,000 for homes up to $1 million, and a GST break up to $1.5 million in the markets that are higher priced. So we are delivering a break for first-time home buyers. We're also focused on scaling up Build Canada Homes, which will build homes that are needed at the prices that are affordable for young people across Canada in these years ahead.
For King Vaughan. The Liberals promised 500,000 new home starts a year, but according to TD's own report, the target is completely unrealistic. Even under the most generous projections, their plan falls dramatically short of what's needed. And now construction is falling, not rising. So let's be honest, a GST cut on homes under $1 million does nothing if there are no homes being built. When will this Liberal government stop spinning their talking points and provide a real plan for Canadians, or maybe they just don't have one?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I will urge the member opposite to check the facts. Year to year, housing starts are up across Canada. We are building more than ever before. We need to scale that to the next level, though, and that's why this government ran on a commitment to build up to 500,000 homes a year across Canada. In 10 years, we have to scale up to that level, and that means cranking up a whole new industry on modular and off-site construction. We have to build faster, cheaper, and greener across Canada to deliver the homes that Canadians need. That's what we're committed to.
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Madam Speaker, as wildfires force tens of thousands to evacuate their homes, criminals are taking advantage of the situation to loot homes and businesses and steal emergency equipment needed to fight the flames. In Redwater, a man was arrested for tampering with sprinkler equipment during the fire, and in Yellowhead County, emergency equipment was stolen. The RCMP is saying that this is the work of repeat offenders, and this is happening across the country. When will these Liberals finally get serious about protecting our communities and crack down on these thugs?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This new government is taking community safety very seriously. We have committed ourselves to bail reform for repeat violent offenders, for those that are involved in home invasions, auto theft, human smuggling, drug trafficking. But let me be clear, Madam Speaker, the provinces and territories also have a critical role to play. I'm glad to see that the province of Ontario has taken some steps. We welcome Premier Ford's announcement to strengthen Ontario's bail system. I hope that other provinces also follow suit.
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Ruby would find me Ruby Tuesday. It just definitely would be. I like the name. I would be singing her name all the time if I knew her. Obviously, you don't.
Later, the Liberals' catch-and-release bail policies have endangered our communities as drug dealers and violent criminals are released back out onto our streets in record time. There is something seriously wrong in our country when a criminal can be arrested, processed, and back out on the streets faster than a sick Canadian can see a doctor in an emergency room. Do the Liberals recognize that their catch-and-release bail policies have made our communities far more dangerous?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, I've said before, we are committed to making it tougher for violent criminals to get bail, and we're going to impose stricter sentences for repeat violent offenders. The provinces, too, have a role to play. We've had these discussions with provinces. Some provinces have been stepping forward. We look forward to working with our provinces and territories to make sure that Canadians are safe. We will stop at nothing to protect Canadians.
This may be an unpopular point, but more guns, more fear, more protection, and more vitriol. It actually, as we can see, as has happened in China, as they followed the American model, and in America, as these things increase, the capital, the violence increases. More compassion doesn't feel good to you if you want to see someone, you know what I mean, smashed down. But it just makes it work. I believe. You guys comment on the side. But there is proof of that. The Scandinavian system of compassion for murderers, they're like living in things. It's actually, the recidivism has gone down like 80%. And so I believe it. You know what I mean? A lot of the ancient teachers, when we lived in a more peaceful world, said this too, right? It's compassion, actually, it's counterintuitive to our human nature, but it's It's my opinion, okay? I'm more worried about results, FECK, F-E-C-K, because that is really what it is. It's not just making me feel good getting that, hey, I've been, and I don't want to see them in any way. I want to see them see the light like I have, right? Cigarettes are not good for me. I've seen the light. I don't know.
Experiments
Sorry.
in leniency have led to lawlessness on our streets.
Compassion.
Ontario court data shows that major assaults have increased 70% since 2015, from 13,000 cases to over 23,000 cases, Madam Speaker. That is not just a failure of so-called social justice policy, it is a failure of moral responsibility by this government. Will the Prime Minister put victims ahead of violent offenders and cancel his get-out-of-jail-free laws, Bill C-5 and C-75?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Once again, Madam Speaker, we are going to bring forward bail legislation in the coming months. We're working hard to make sure that feedback is being taken from all our policing agencies. We're going to do whatever it takes to protect Canadians. We're working hard to make sure we strengthen this regime, but provinces too have a role to play in the administration of justice.
The Honourable Member for York-Durham.
10 years, Madam Speaker, no bail reform. Why? Because they think everything is okay. In Durham, they don't. In 2015, there were 68 cases of sexual assault. Last year, 128 cases. At the same time, offenders violating bail and other conditions were up 137%. That is not mere coincidence. That is cause and effect. Will the minister please break this cycle of violence and repeal their get-out-of-jail-free laws, Bill C-5 and C-75?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
Madam Speaker, the honourable member is right to raise concern around crimes involving sexual violence, but his solution is to repeal a law that makes it tougher for people who've committed acts of intimate partner violence to actually escape bail and return to our communities. That is a nonsensical approach. In the months ahead, we are going to be moving forward with legislative reforms that are going to make it harder to get bail for people who commit violent acts, for people who are engaged in auto theft, home invasion, human trafficking, and tougher sentences for violent repeat offenders. We need to be smart, we need to look at the facts, and we need to make sure that we understand the laws that we're putting forward, or in his case, suggest we would take off the books.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last night, the Minister of Public Safety made some shocking admissions. He's the minister responsible for confiscating law-abiding firearms owners' guns. He doesn't know what the firearms safety course is. He doesn't even know what a firearms license is, Madam Speaker. I invite him to come out to my local range, the East Elgin Sportsmen Association, and learn the things he needs to know to do his file. But since the minister doesn't even know the basics of Canada's gun laws, will he halt this government's confiscation of firearms?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, let me first congratulate my colleague opposite for his Adobe editing skills, for the type of trash that he's putting out on social media. But let me just address the issue of buyback. A serious plan to keep our communities safe starts with response.
Oh my God! Did you just hear that? Okay, Gary, and then the Sangari, and then that Sangari. I'm sorry, I'm trying, and then Gary Ananasangari has always been a nice individual. I always said he's been good. He was over in Indigenous Affairs, and he's a very nice. He seems like a very nice guy. I did not expect that. That comeback from him. We gotta put this whole thing on. I don't, I'm not a big, huge gun fan. I like that the States allows it, so hey, that keeps that, but we know this. The more, and the more, anyway. Okay, so here.
Firearm safety course is he doesn't even know what a firearms license is, Madam Speaker. I invite him to come out to my local range, the East Elgin Sportsmen Association, and learn the things he needs to know to do his file. But since the minister doesn't even know the basics of Canada's gun laws, will he halt this government's confiscation of firearms?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, let me first congratulate my colleague opposite for his Adobe editing skills, for the type of trash that he's putting out on social media. But let me just address the issue of buyback. A serious plan to keep our communities safe starts with responsible action to keep guns off our streets, Madam Speaker. The buyback program will provide fair compensation to businesses and firearm owners in possession of prohibited firearms that are otherwise unusable or unsellable. The first phase allows gun stores and gun dealers now holding over 10,000 guns that are now illegal in the
Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Madam Speaker, over the course of the past few weeks, we've watched as devastating wildfires have ravaged through my home province of Manitoba and the neighbouring province of Saskatchewan. Entire communities have been evacuated, homes have been lost, and the air quality has been so poor that everyday activities have been rendered very difficult. Unsurprisingly, in places like Winnipeg, my hometown, the community has responded with kindness and generosity. Can the Minister of Emergency Management and Community Resilience share with this House how other Canadians can step up in this moment of need? Thank you, Madam.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his question and for his deep concern for the people of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. The wildfire season has hit earlier and harder than usual, and Canadians are stepping up to support those affected. That's why we've partnered with Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Red Cross to match every single individual donation made to their wildlife appeals. Every dollar Canadians give will go further to provide shelter, food, and essential supplies to those affected by wildfires. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for
Madam Speaker, yesterday I asked the government why a convicted child sex offender in New Brunswick is out on bail while appealing his jail sentence. The government blamed the provinces, judges, and the police. Yet this child sex offender was already arrested and sentenced for his crime. The predator got out on bail under federal law, and the government is not closing this dangerous loophole. Now, the minister pointed to C2 as an answer, but this bill does nothing to stop this from happening again. So I ask again, when will Liberals stop convicted child sex offenders from receiving bail?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I understand this matter involves the Correctional Services Canada, and it's subject to the release by the parole board. Of course, C2 has a number of important measures in place to protect the border, including ensuring that those who are predators, especially on the internet, using child pornography, for example, the law enforcement has the right tools in order to be able to do their jobs more adequately, Madam Speaker.
Flotus is doing a really good job on that one. Of course, Millennia.
Stock just a fraction below the healthy zone. With all those seeking increased quota, one sector stands out in terms of their historical access and adjacency to the resource. Those are the inshore harvesters of the northeast coast of Newfoundland in areas 3K and 3L. So given that these harvesters have had little increase in their share of quota last year, will the minister do the right thing and accept the FFAW proposal to allocate any increase in northern cod quota to the inshore fishers of the northeast coast?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I well know the historic importance of cod to the province as well as the cultural importance. And I also remember the moratorium 30 years ago and well remember the absolute devastation to so many communities and individuals. As we begin to move forward and see the stock return to a more healthy zone, it is imperative that we ensure that we balance the future generations of fishers in the province with the need for harvesters to be able to have a reasonable livelihood. And I will look at both.
She's a pretty good, eloquent politician for Speaker. She does a good job replying and keeping it calm. Small is good at angry.
This has impacted their crab quotas and will worsen as the cod stock grows. Plant workers and fish harvesters in this adjacent area must benefit from the growth of the cod stock that's placing livelihoods now dependent on crab in peril. So will the minister not yield to high-paid lobbyists and foreign-funded NGOs and instead do the right thing and accept the FFAW proposal to allocate any increase in northern cod to fish harvesters on the inshore sector of the northeast coast?
and I will repeat again what I said earlier because I don't know if my colleague heard me. It is imperative that we balance the future of stocks. We need to have a fishery to pass on to the next generation. At the same time, we need to understand that this is livelihood, and we can do both, but we also need to ensure that we have a stock going forward. Thank you.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Madam Speaker, sport brings people together, builds confidence, and helps young people stay healthy and active. That's why programs like the Community Sport for All initiative are so important, especially for kids who might otherwise face barriers to participating. Could the Secretary of State for Sport update the House on how this program is helped making sport more accessible for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my neighbours in Burlington North, Milton West for their confidence, but I'd also like to sincerely thank the good people of Carleton for electing that member, a fantastic community champion, as their member of Parliament. The Community Sport for All initiative lifts people up by breaking down barriers to physical activity. Programs like Dribble Dreams in Milton and Ottawa South, United Soccer in that member's riding, an organization that MP knows well because he's so connected to his community. Partners like Kids Sport and Jumpstart have already helped more than 1 million Canadian families and kids enjoy sport and participate. That's because every kid deserves a chance to play, to compete, and belong. When kids play, Madam Speaker, Canada wins.
That member, that MP, is from one of the most beautiful places of Ontario. If you like suburbia, country, within a literal jump to the city because they have the GO train there, I just love they have a very small downtown, concentrated, I would say. It's an older, you know what I mean, kind of downtown. It's been revitalized very, very well. It's one of these beautiful little towns. Like, if you want to just go on a Tuesday night somewhere and get the feel of a quiet town, and there's like the velodrome that they built there. It's like an international velodrome. It's wicked, really wicked awesome. And the hills, and go have I want to call it a moonlit walk with your significant other, through like a suburban street. If you live in the Toronto area or something, it's just a great place like that. They built these really cool, modern, 4-story building homes, townhouses, and the streets are like triple wide with parking on them, and I just think the developers, the city managers, all the way up through, I guess, the MPPs and MPs have done thus far. I haven't been there in probably 5 years before the pandemic, but they did such an outstanding job of that area, and it's got really, like I said, it's got the nice, you can see the hill in the background, kind of escarpment over, and there's good country. I just love that area, that whole area, Brampton, like from there, Burlington, all the way across, and then it starting to get busy. But the beautiful thing about that area is that you can hop, like I said, if you lived, say, in downtown, you could walk to the GO train, and boom, you're in Union Square or downtown Toronto, at the heart of Toronto, and no time. And really, really fast. It's just an outstanding job they've done to that city and to the country as a whole. To me, that's why when I was first became an advocate, like, this train system is a good idea. High speed would be awesome, but, well.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After 10 years of these liberal inflationary deficits, we now see the result. Yesterday, I heard a heart-rending story from someone from Victoriaville. She said, I live alone. It's very hard to make ends meet. At the end of the month, it's very hard to pay the bills. I can barely put food on the table after paying my bills. Sometimes I can't put food on the table at all. She said she is able to eat only if she has money left over. Here in Canada, it was heartbreaking. My question is simple. Will the Liberals finally table a budget so that no one actually has to give up some of their meals? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, I'd like to welcome our new colleague to the House. He's lucky because he will have the opportunity today to support a piece of legislation that will lower taxes For example, for the constituent in Victoriaville that he mentioned. He will also have an opportunity to support a bill that was also supported by his former boss, Mr. Legault. This bill will create big projects, economic activity opportunities for workers, including for people like his constituent.
Trump's tariffs are just the latest blow for BC's forestry sector. The industry needs a lifeline so it can provide good jobs in rural communities. Retrofitting mills to generate electricity from biomass could protect jobs and power grids with sustainable energy. The Domtar paper mill in Port Alberni made this switch, and now 88% of its emissions come from biomass. In 2023, the Liberals promised a tax credit for biomass energy, but have delayed implementation while investments head south. Will the Prime Minister show he hasn't forgotten about BC's forestry sector and make sure biomass is in this year's budget?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the member's question. Our government supports the growth of the biomass sector. Later today, we'll be tabling a bill that will help us build new energy-efficient sources of energy, including biomass, and we hope our member will support the bill.
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Nunavut has the highest rate of child poverty in Canada. Almost half of Inuit children go to school hungry every day at 42%. Yet, the Liberals recently cancelled a Hamlet food voucher program with nothing to replace it. The Nutrition North subsidy does not reduce grocery prices. Meanwhile, the Northwest Company consistently reports hundreds of millions in profits. Will the Liberals admit they believe the so-called nation-building Grace Bay Road is more important than feeding Inuit children?
Yes. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to ensuring full retail subsidy benefits reach Northerners. To enhance accountability, we formed Nutrition North Compliance Audit Review Committee with Indigenous and regional representatives. We recognize food is more than nutrition. It is also cultural identity and sovereignty, and we are committed to ensuring that the subsidy goes directly to Northerners. Thank you.
And that comes to the end of oral questions. Just a reminder for members to please look at the chair and see if it's a woman.
All right. I'm just going to. Okay. Thanks for watching, y'all. This MP. I'm not for her, against her, but I'll tell you this. And because, hey, I do the news, and I think that the CBC journalist is trying. I don't blame this individual. We've come at a point in Canada where all of our media, they're behind. CBC doesn't have this problem, okay? CBC has been taxpayer funded, right? Taxpayer funded. And Fregascados, I just like to say his name. It's taxpayer funded, and they don't. There's no need for them to do a very quick job. Canada Land, it's a single guy, so whatever. But there's this. The article was that basically someone accused this woman, this politician, of being not nice or something like this, asking for delivery. And then some lawyer firm, right? This is how bad it is in Canada. A school goes out, like, all you have to do is you have an accusation, and they go out and hire lawyers, which have never been known to be shady in any shape, way, or form. Lawyers to do an investigation on this politician before she was a politician, okay? And so this throwing this around at her, and they said, well, maybe she was a little bit unreasonable, and the extrapolation from the CBC report, I didn't see the Canada Land one, was that they didn't give you any details. They basically said they took it full-heartedly to throw slander at this lady. I think she should sue them. I personally think they should sue. She should sue because there wasn't really details, and the way it would be very malicious. Because this person who said she did, like we said, it was like over work ethic and stuff like that. Like I didn't see the details, so I can't give you a real. I can't form my own real opinion. I'm supposed to take this lawyer's right? And maybe they just didn't do a good job. Maybe they did a great job. I can't tell you. But when you're just throwing what someone spaghetti at the wall is what they did. This person accused her of like saying it's unlawful conditions. I need to know the exact story details because this society we've come in is like, oh, they asked me to like work 5 minutes extra. Like people are a little bit, you know what I mean? When it comes to, I have an example, a story. I'm not going to say it, but they've come to. People are so scared of not doing, and the HR department is so scared of not doing anything about a complaint because it could come back to bite them, that they've overcompensated. And I was told this by an HR person. They're like, we just have to do something. It doesn't matter how reasonable it is. So someone who's willing to float the law and for gain or ungain or God knows why, destroy another, just with an accusation, it works. And there's no pushback with society. I think maybe the pendulum, right? We're too far with like, quit your whining, to now we're like, oh my God, please whine more, right? So my gripe is that this CBC journalist didn't have enough time and didn't give enough context to this MPP's accusations that were against her in 2019. Now, this person, I think, the reason I believe that this person has malicious intent, because this MP went to she quit. Okay, she quit the job that she was at and went to another job. And this person apparently followed her at the next job and called the Liberals and said, I want everyone to know so it doesn't happen to anyone else. Social justice warrioring on this MP over like we're talking about like words. She didn't do anything physical or anything like that. That was not even an accusation, though I tell you it's so vague in the article. And this person seems to be just having malicious intent to destroy this person because she probably doesn't like her, right? That's probably the case. They probably do not like each other. Apparently, the one did bad work. I don't know. The problem, all of this with media is we're instantly going to jump on the bandwagon and throw out slanderous things that one says to another and take it as gospel. And then I have to trust the CB. We no longer trust the media. No one trusts the media anymore. Everyone knows that their timelines are so shortened. They don't like Fife over there in Globe and Mail. He's given a lot more leeway. He's the one. Maybe there's a couple other ones. That Cooper guy, maybe, because now he's independent. But there's very few are given enough timeline to actually properly research an article to give it out, right? Now, maybe the CBC was working on it. Canada Land jumped the story, and so they wrote it beforehand. There's maybe I'm giving all the opportunities of outs. But the problem is what they should have done is just a correction. Say, hey, listen, this is the story from make Canada Land the story. Canada Land jumped it. We're still working on it, and we've been working on it for a while, and we'll give you the real reporting when it's done. Timeline? We can't tell you because we find that this is, I believe it's a pervasive problem in Canada that there's abusers of the system. And that's the wrong word. They utilize the system for their own means and grandstanding and whatever else they shortcut to their own happiness. And our system is actually assisting them and destroy lives. And then our media, which is supposed to be a pillar, a reasonable pillar, has been. And part of the reason is they're in trouble themselves with monetary and all these other reasons. But CBC shouldn't have that problem because we're taxpayer funded, and what we're doing is we're running with it. We've become a society, and I know no one wants to hear it. We've become a society of grievances, and if you have a grievance, we'll give you a high ground to stand on. It doesn't matter how reasonable or unreasonable your grievance is. You just have to have a grievance and say, "Oh, I'm so scared of this person. I won't do this and I won't do that," and everyone's like, "Well, that person is wrong." Instead of saying, push back, say, hey, are you being unreasonable in your grievances? And attacking someone, continuing on. She left the position. She went to another position, and this individual followed her at that position, started calling people malicious intent. And I don't know the whole story, but obviously the person doesn't feel scared or fearful of them or anything. They're following her career. They followed her, this is the third job, and then she apparently, I don't know who, called the Liberals at this person's last job, at this job now, and said, you don't want to have this person work for you. This is like over words that happened decade ago, or half, I don't know, 6 years ago, and you're like this, and then, okay, that person, fine, or whatever. They're I don't know the whole story, but they're obviously have a bee in the bonnet, I don't, and here, or whatever. But the problem I find is that media is just jumped on the same part of HR, and they're all scared of not helping destroy lives on accusations, and then taking this I don't know, this lawyer firm that worked for a lawyer firm has to investigate a boss being mean. Okay, who hasn't had a mean boss? Okay, doesn't demand more of you. What if she was being the wrong word? What if she was being elevated to be leader? I know this. When I was they were hardest on me when they were trying to improve me in my one position. They're like, we want you management, and so right now they were on me, and they're like, oh, and it felt awful. Learning and growing is not good, and so this is the point I make, is that we need to have more of our media do their full investigation. And I understand Canada Line can't do it. He's a one-man show. He can just get out the reports. But there's the last pillar in CBC should be, the reason why I think they're failing is because they're pushing agendas, and it's always the same thing. Same angle, right? Without doing the proper investigative journalism that is required of them, that was in the past, right? And basically, we're becoming a society, like I said, of general grievances, and we're elevating the cat man, you know what I mean, who's overly, you know what I mean, having issues, and I sometimes am the cat man, you know, and I have to take a step back. Wait a second, are you being overly dramatic with this? Or should you just deal with it and carry on? Keep calm and carry on, right? That should be more of a motto that happens. But in society right now, we're making more people neurotic, and because it helps with the social algorithm clicks. And I think that we've all recognized it, and it's time to push back. What do we got here? Comments? I don't know. No one likes what I'm saying, I know. Well, it's taxpayer funded. The CBC, I don't know. Those comments, Joe, are a little bit, general grievance, right? But the CBC is required, and I agree that I think that we always need the CBC because as money can come in, say a foreign country. We already know there's one country with trillions of dollars. And they could take over our nation's mines, and they already have. They already are. They're in all kinds of areas, and it's not just one country. It's several countries with several different interests, and they're not in Canada's. Like one country, will not name. They just don't want us to build any greenhouses because we buy all of their stuff from down south, their food. So they're like, well, we're going to help any lawyer or company that will help muddy the water so they won't build any greenhouses there. This is actually happening. CSIS can't even keep up with it. There's also the wars that are going on, that we have two different sides that are happening over in the Middle East right now, trying to, for their countries or their, I don't know. But the CBC and say that and the most pernicious is really the states. Because they're so close and they're so this and that. An American company, and this isn't so bad, could come in, and because we're a very small market, we're 40 million of us, could come in and just buy up all of like Conrad Black's empire, and then put not waste, but literally sink billions into it to change Canadians' opinion over and over and over and own everything. And Conrad Black is such a true Canadian. I use him. I don't always agree with his policies, but I agree that he's a hell of a lot smarter than me, and he's a true Canadian in every sense of the word. And so a company could come in, or say what the most likely would be like wipe out his company and then make their own company huge and at loss of money and change Canadians' opinions in a large way. And we'll have no defense because, Conrad Black, though rich he is only so rich. But no one can beat a government in money, right? No one beats governments. So you can have a lot of like unlawful things happening in the private sector, and the police can slowly, they always say the police are never at the forefront of it. They're always behind the what's happening. But the CBC or that they could be in front of it because it's, you know what I mean? They can fight back in a different way. Whereas it can happen. The BBC kind of has done that for good. I don't know a guy who was in Afghanistan, and he said, "Listen, David, you don't." He's the one who told me this. He's like, he said, the CBC was our only open aspect to the world. He said, all of our media, all of our imams, all of our our preachers and our leaders were like telling us America and everything's bad. He said the only thread of democracy and of peace that wasn't hating everybody outside of our was the BBC, and that's what they did. They tried to promote the good Western values, right? And that. It's a force for good, but now you could have a force for bad that just comes in Canada and takes us over, right? And we'll have, this is why I believe in the CBC. The CBC has to be scrutinized. I think it should be scrutinized and to a very high degree because of the high degree of responsibility it has. But the CBC, in the end, or a government-funded media, it is not needed until it's needed. You don't need it. We can complain about this and that. But if there's another country that just decides to open up a media empire in Canada to change our minds, we'll have no defense. Like Conrad Black will not be able to defend it. And you can't open a CBC on a dime. If they came here, it'll be gone. So I think the CBC should try to get as much as possible out of competing with the private sector, right? At the same time, because we're a country of free speech, at the same time doing the full, thorough research and not promoting the government of the day's agenda to the degree it has. They've been pushing the one agenda way too closely. They've been too tied with the Liberals, though they have to be, of course, tied somewhat with the government. But I think that it's just too close, and it's affected their viewership. Right, because we're not 100% thinking that, and so I'm not trying to defend this MP. I'm trying to defend proper journalism, and I think what happened to the journalist. I believe this because if you read the article, the journalist says, "Okay, we got this in April," and they didn't release it right away. I think it was I'm not sure. They were working on it. And they just released it because it got released somewhere else, and they looked, they were like, just get it out there, whatever you got. But it's irresponsible of media. If you're going to do a slander story on somebody, you have to, I believe, You have to give all the details, all of them. You can't. This is what the conservatives right now are doing. They grab a headline that doesn't say everything, and then they throw that at it and say, hey, look, this. And it works for clicks. He's right. And Gary Ananasangri did a really good pushback. He's like, I've never seen the videos he's been making, but he says, I really appreciate your editing. Oh, it was so good. This is how I say this. You got to give a compliment. You got to be Canadian, and then give the truth, because that's what makes it more effective. I'm a believer in feck. So you got to be like a reasonable human. Say, hey, I think, but your stuff is trash. Good editing, but you're editing trash, right? And that's what's happening, I think, a lot in Canada. I think it's unbecoming an MP to do it. It should be more like the media that's the low scale media, like myself, the low level media. But the CBC should never put themselves. CBC, National Post, Globe and Mail, CTV. I'm probably missing some. Oh, Blacklock's Reporter, The Hill. They shouldn't lower themselves for clicks and for lower themselves for clicks, because it's actually deteriorating our nation, and we're under right. We're under it, under the and the degree of billions of dollars, and it's happening, and we can't really defend ourselves right now. We haven't been able to defend ourselves right now, and our media, in this case, I think, has failed the nation by slandering this person on an accusation that I don't believe is substantiated. And I believe if reasonable people were to read it, because we know what's happening in like if you compare what happens in construction world, geez, like they put glue in my gloves, they put sawdust in my gloves, they put like horrible things to me, and I laughed and I didn't complain, right? Like horrible things, horrible. I'm not, I talk too much. Pisses people off. And so, you know what I mean? Did I complain? No, I addressed it. Slowed down, right? But what's happening right now currently in offices is like they breathed heavy when I said something. They went, oh, that's a complaint. And then that person's like going to quit their job. Like we've come to the point in our society, we're destroying ourselves, and the pendulum swing. This is like, I'm reading about this stuff, about correspondence and stuff like that, and rhythm, and the pendulum. And our pendulum has gone so far that it's a problem. And reasonable people, this is why the rise of Trump. Reasonable people with an uncouth mouth are like, that's stupid, Well, what do you mean? She asked you to do better work? She didn't like your work, like... In construction, you rip out work when it's not right, and you redo. This happens all the time. It's not like, we have to have I believe, a less society of grievances, and there needs to be pushback against those who falsely accuse, or else we're just basically I'm pretty sure our pendulum swing. Civilizations breathe in and breathe out. I've been reading up on the fall of civilizations, and they always breathe in, breathe out. Is this Canada's last gasp and America's last gasp? Trump? I don't like the tariffs. We need to do these things. But Trump is trying to give us another gasp. And we really are losing, and in a big way. Look at innovation. America was the place that had all of the stuff first. China now has, their cars are more advanced than ours, the majority of them on the road. They have little beep-beep cars. They have the regulation to do high-speed rails. They have more high-speed rail than we do. They have more building and cheap housing and more job opportunities than we do. They have more futuristic cities. They have more modern homes. All of these things. Look at the glass that they have. They have we all seen the movie Equilibrium, where it's all, you can't see through the window. Yeah, you press a button, it goes to a white screen glass, and then it goes to visible. They are advanced. They are past us. We have a better system of democracy that I believe needs to get reworked, because our pendulum is like contracting. We're contracting as a society to the point where we're literally, you know what I mean, they're going to take us over. Once they have enough money over us, they have a couple $1 trillion, because we're a capitalistic system, they can just buy up every company secretly, and then we're done. We have no chance. But if we actually recognize the mistake that, you know, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, you shouldn't drink every day, and not that I ever did or any of these things, but even smoke, but cigarettes or anything, we can fix it. We can breathe again, but you know, born again. But this idea that there is no problems and we have to raise every general grievance. Okay, fine for the Canada Land, and I don't know the whole story. Kind for Canada Land, Mickey Mouse people like me, but not our. It's unbecoming of our politicians, and I don't care about what's happening in the States. I mean, our Canada. It's unbecoming of our politicians to be a state of grievances and highlighting any grievance. It's unbecoming our media, and I'm not saying many of them do it. I really don't. I think it's the smaller stuff, but it's our leaders, definitely our leaders right now. And the CBC has very much been to blame for like this push, which was correct at first, but it's overcorrected, like everything. It always does this. And well, civilizations rise and fall.